All right, it is Training Tuesday once again, and today is May 14th, 2019. It is 11:30 in the morning Pacific time. It's still winter here in Santa Barbara. I don't know what's going on. We had 2 days of summer. Now it's back to winter again. It's really weird. Okay, so we're just going to make sure that this is rolling and people are here. You can hear me. Today we're going to talk about something I probably shouldn't be talking about because I have no idea what I'm doing. But that should be heartening because even not knowing anything about what I'm doing, I was able, with a little help from my friends, I'll admit, to put together a bunch of pretty interesting use cases that I've been collecting for a while. Questions from the community about how to use the API and the new Webhooks feature. And in just a couple of hours or so, I was able to put together a whole bunch of different use cases and examples that I'll share with you. After we get off this call, I'll put this campaign in the marketplace. But I wanted to walk you through kind of how I did it. And I am not a programmer, and I'm sure that I'm about to say some really dumb things that our engineers are going to laugh at me for, or if you're an engineer, you'll laugh at me about. So forgive me in advance. But again, I think that it actually kind of comes together. It's actually pretty easy and it's fun. I had a good time. I had some pretty fun little successes. You get this stuff working and it's like, wow, it works. And so I'm going to show you how the tools I use and the way I kind of organize these things, and we'll just walk you through these various use cases. So just to start at the top. The API is short for Application Programming Interface. It is a very sophisticated, extensive set of tools that are made available to Ontraport users, and they are designed for use by engineers to integrate third-party data streams into and out of your Ontraport account. And so you can do just about everything you can do in the app, you can do with the computer through the API. If you want to add a contact or change a contact or change, just about anything. Add fields, create sections, charge a product, anything you can do, not anything, but a lot of what you can do in the app, you can do via the API. So that's what that is. One thing I should throw out there at the beginning of the conversation is that I believe, I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure that every account needs to go through an API application process. We kind of like lock that down as a new user. You may not have access to the API, and we ask you some questions about what your intentions are with the thing so that our team can understand what your use case is and make sure you're not going to do anything stupid or illegal with it. But basically they just review your answers and then they'll turn that on for you and you'll have access to the API. So and then what happens is you get a couple of keys. I'll show you how that works in a minute, and then you can kind of like go through and use the back door of the Ontraport app for all sorts of things that are actually, some of which are actually hard to do in the app itself. Traditionally, the API has been used by third-party tools. Oftentimes it's used by Zapier or your engineers to integrate other tools into our system. And of course that's all doable and it gets used. It's used a lot, incidentally. Our API just gets hammered constantly all day long. Hundreds of thousands, millions of requests a day. I think it's a heavily used feature. But today we're going to talk about something a little weird, which is to actually use a new feature that we have called Webhooks, which was announced a couple of weeks ago. I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago, and to use our own Webhooks feature with the Ontraport API. So let's talk about what Webhooks are real quick. Webhooks are a feature that you'll find in a few places throughout the app. Most commonly, you'll find it in, I'm going to jump into this campaign here. You'll find it in campaigns. And it's an element. It says send to a webhook. and we'll get into what that is. But basically, it's like, you know, a way to have your Ontraport account send out a chunk of data to a third-party system, right? It's a way to send data to a Zapier or to whatever third-party tool you might want to send data to. And it's done as a step in a campaign, just like you might send an email or send an SMS or tag a contact or update a field. You can send out a webhook, and it will just take a bunch of data that you determine and send it to a place that you tell us, and do it in the way that you tell us. And I'll dive into the settings on that thing in a minute. But that's just what a webhook is. It's a tool that sends data out of your Ontraport account and to another service. And you can, like I said, you can do it in campaigns. You can also do it in sequences, but you guys don't use sequences anymore, do you? Rules also, if you wanted to do rules, again, I don't use rules. You don't need to use rules. You can all do it in the campaigns. But if you do, if you're a rules kind of person, you can send a webhook out your rules. And here's the details on that. So there's a few different ways you can send these things out. And I'm not going to save that because we're going to focus on campaigns. So what we're going to do today, though, is we're going to actually use the webhooks that are available in campaigns to send data actually right back into your own account via the API. And we're going to do that because, like I said, there's a few things that you can do via the API that are actually pretty tricky to do with automation in the account or even manually sometimes. So this kind of like answers a bunch of use cases that you guys have been asking about for a long time, which is actually incidentally why we upgraded the Webhooks tool, specifically so that we could make it possible for you to easily hit your own API and execute these use cases. So that's what we were doing, and as we did it, of course, there was a bunch of improvements that we made to Webhooks, which made it cool for all sorts of use cases. So let's talk about the tools that we're going to use to get this stuff done. When I kind of put this stuff together, it took a few different tools. So the first is the API documentation. So you want to begin to get your arms around what the API is a little bit. And again, if you're completely non-technical, and you don't feel comfortable with looking at code at all, this conversation probably just isn't for you. But I am not technical. I can't write PHP or anything like that. This is like pretty basic codey stuff. So if you can kind of deal with some basics, I think you can join along here and get some cool stuff done. So this is the API documentation, and it'll tell you a lot of different things about how this thing works. It'll give you some examples, but we're not going to use any of these examples because that's all too complicated for me. We're going to use our own webhook tool to send these API calls. Okay, one of the things to understand about the API is that you have to send some data to a particular, we call them endpoints. And an endpoint is really just a web address. And so you send the data to a particular web address, and there's not just one web address. In fact, there's a whole bunch of web addresses. That is, when we'll start using the right word, there's a whole bunch of endpoints that are available, and they accept different sorts of data. And when they get different sorts of data, they're going to do different sorts of things. And so this documentation here is kind of like describing all the different endpoints that are available for your use. So you can, a very common one, the most popular one you're going to use is this contacts endpoint. And that's it's actually a series of endpoints. You can kind of look down here. So this is giving you all the detail about the data that this particular set of endpoints accepts. And so we'll get into that in a minute. But let's see, are they going to show us the various endpoints? Oh yeah, here. So for example, retrieve multiple contexts. And you can say get at this particular endpoint, and then it asks you, it tells you what data it needs to receive, and then the request parameters that you can send to it, and then it shows you kind of like what's going to come back at you if you send that request to this particular endpoint. So I actually, when I did this project, I didn't use this API documentation too much because, like I said, this is a little bit complicated for me. I'm not writing curl or PHP because I don't have a server to send these things. I'm using Ontraport to send this stuff. So what I did is I went to this other tool, which we call our live documentation, and there's a link to it right here. You can see this. It says you can try it out on our live documentation. And this isn't quite as pretty, but it's very functional. It's really an interesting tool. So what this is the same kind of thing, but it shows all the different endpoints that you can use. And when you click on them, it opens up and shows you all the different sorts of different call types. Different, you can send a delete, send a get. These are different ways, different sort of webhook types. I don't know what they're called. Different call types. And then when you click on one, for example, it tells you what it's going to do. This will create a contact. This will update a contact. So maybe I want to update a contact, and it basically tells you, kind of how to do it. And how I figured out how to do this is it says the parameters that you can send, and then the stuff in bold is, I think, required. And what's cool about this is that you can actually try it, and it tells you whether it worked, and you can see whether it worked in your account. So let's just go through an example, and I'll show you exactly how I kind of took these tools and put them all together and made some stuff work. Okay? And if you have questions along the way, if I'm not making sense, go ahead and ask them. Will you let me know if there's questions?
Yeah, and Pete's TAing.
And Pete's TAing, great, cool. Pete probably knows a lot more about this than I know. Okay, so we're going to jump into this webhook examples. I'm going to try and get through not all of these, but I'm going to try to get through a bunch of them. We're going to get quick at this because after you figure out how to do one or two, the rest of them are pretty easy. And I'm just to give you a preview of what we're going to get to here. One thing that you can't do today using the campaign builder is you can't automatically create a deal record when a contact performs a certain action, right? Or when something happens in a contact campaign. And it would make sense to be able to do that. It would be cool, for example, if a contact filled out your demo request form, if all of a sudden a deal could get made so that you could have your sales teams working that deal record and not maybe messing with the contact. The reason that that's not a built-in feature today is because it would be really complicated to do. We'd have to figure out a whole like field matching scenario because like what does the deal record say? What is the name of the deal? Who's what are the values of the deal fields? Just what are the details of this thing? What is this deal record going to look like when it gets created? And obviously we could build a bunch of robust functionality around that, but we haven't done that yet. And so this is a way to make that happen real easily, actually. Another example is copy a field to another field. You can do this today in Ontraport with numeric fields. You can merge number fields and make them equal another field, but you can't do it with text fields or I think pretty much any other field type other than numeric fields. And so there are use cases that you guys have where you want to copy one field into another field for some reason. For example, you want to store the value of a field on a particular day. Like I want to know what this field value was today, even if it might change in the future, right? And you could do that. Add 30 days to a date. I've never felt this was particularly necessary because you can always you can always merge dates with time added or removed from those dates using the built-in merge tools. But you guys seem to continue to want this, and so I'm going to show you how to add 3 days or 4 days, or in this case 30 days, to a particular date field. It's pretty easy. Add a note. So if you want, for example, somebody comes and fills out a form or visits a page, maybe you want to just put a note in their contact record that says, hey, they visited this page on this day. I don't know. And then I did some other weird stuff. Post a Slack notification. So maybe a new lead, and you just boom, I get a new lead or new sale in Slack. That was actually pretty easy to do. I'm not sure we'll get all the way through that today because obviously there's a lot to talk about, and Slack is a little bit of a third-party system, obviously. Trello, I did this all by myself without any help from my engineers. It was a little complicated to figure out, and quite honestly, it was a little complicated to just get like credentials out of Trello. So that was probably the hardest one. I will leave this in here when I share it, but I'm going to probably leave that to you guys to figure out a little more of an advanced. Okay, delete a contact. Very risky for me to put this in here. I probably actually won't put it in here when I share this. The reason being that I'm pretty hesitant to have you guys, to make it easy for you guys to automate the deletion of contacts. The reason being is that y'all screw up your campaigns all the time. And I know that what's gonna happen is you're gonna accidentally subscribe 1,000 people to something like this, and you're gonna delete them all, and then you're gonna call us up, and we're gonna have to charge you money to get them back. It's $50 to have a rollback of your account, and I don't want to enable that sort of behavior. But I do want to show it here because that particular endpoint is a little bit different, and I thought it was a good example just to know. Create a Zoom meeting. This one actually just took me a few minutes. I was able to knock that out. And then this is another one that's kind of weird. I'm going to see if we have time to get there. It's very useful for those of us who are using custom objects. If you're not using custom objects and you don't know what this might be, then I would probably just tune out for that because it's a little bit geeky, but it's going to be useful for the folks who are into it. So let's just start at the beginning because they're easier over here to the left. So let's look at this. Let's create a deal. Okay. So here's what this is. I'm just gonna, let's see, how am I gonna do this? I'm gonna walk through what the settings are over here on the left. So the settings are, first, what is the destination URL? So that's the endpoint that we talked about before, right? And so, I'll go through this example and show you how I found that in just a minute. And then it's the webhook method. That's the word I was looking for before. It's the method. And here's all those things: delete, put, patch, get, post. And those are that's this stuff here, right? Remember this? Delete, get, post, put, get, post. So we have to select the appropriate method depending on what it is we want to do over here. Okay. I'm going to get rid of this API documentation because I'm not going to look at it again. Now, header information. This is, you know, who knew? Not me. But apparently, these posts to webhooks have two parts, and there's like the header part and there's the body part, and turns out that you want to put things that need to be secure in the header part, because you can have that be secure and the part that's in the body may not be as secure necessarily. Anyway, you put your API keys in the header. I didn't know. But I found out. Here's the interesting thing, guys, is that when I share this with you, these are my API keys for this test account. Don't worry, you can now download all the contacts in my account. It's all just a bunch of Daffy Duck stuff, so don't bother. But these are the keys. I'll show you in a second where to get those keys. What's interesting is when we built this new webhook feature, we made it kind of a cool little sneaky feature, and that is that when I share this campaign with you and you then install it in your account, it's going to actually create web API keys for you and and pop them in here for you. So you're not even gonna have to worry about this. Now, I will say there's a caveat to that, and that is that if you haven't yet gotten your API approved, the keys won't work. So you need to go get those approved. You can contact support to get that done. I think that's how you do that. Maybe Pete will tell you how to get your API keys approved. But that is how that's going to go. If you've already gotten your API approved once, you don't have to do it every time you make keys. It's just kind of a one and done thing. But this is so this will already be set up for you. But this is what you would type in here. You have the keys are two parts. It's a key and then an app ID. And that just goes right in there like that. And then here's the body part, and we'll talk about what all this is in a minute and how I got that information. And then the description, of course, is just the words that go right here. So that's it. There's some other settings here, advanced settings that I can show you. Max requests per minute. 1 retry per request. So max requests per minute is like how fast are we going to blast this receiving domain. I think that our team put appropriate settings for our own API in here. So you can just leave this stuff alone if you want to retry it. What that means is if for some reason the system doesn't doesn't work, the receiving system is down or slow or something for a few minutes, it'll keep retrying it. I think there's a waiting period between, I don't know how long the wait is, but probably a few seconds or a minute or something, and it'll keep trying it again. And you can put 4 or 10 or whatever in there, and it'll try a few times before it finally gives up. So that's all that is. But I don't think you need to worry about those advanced settings. I didn't, and it worked fine here. Okay, so we're going to create a deal. Now check this out. I'm going to copy this. Oh, no, I'm going to actually show you where to get this. So I'm going to app.ontraport. I'm going to load another tab here, just so I can show you where to get your API keys if you don't already have them. You go to administration, and then you go to integrations, and it's right here. Ontraport API instructions and key manager, and you just click create a new API key, and you basically can ignore all this because that's all for the old API, and you're not going to use that. And you just pick your contact owner, probably you, because the permissions that the API has will follow the permissions of the user that you put in here. So if a user can't see or update a contact, then the API for that user also won't be able to see or update a contact. So most times you'll pick the administrator of the account, and then you save this thing, and it'll just spit out some API keys for you. So what then I did. So let's grab these API keys. So I'm copying this. Then up here, this is kind of fun. Over here, it says at the top of this page, it's weird there's no submit button, but it just kind of is submitting. You put the API key in the API key spot, and you put the app ID in the app ID spot, and then you just kind of click away, and it'll think about itself for a second, and now it turns green. And what it's doing here is it's looking at your account, and it's actually Ontraport is a more sophisticated system than most. Most systems have a series of endpoints, and that's just kind of the series of endpoints. But with a tool like Ontraport, where you can create new data types, custom objects, and stuff like that, there actually new endpoints get created for those various objects as well. So when you turn on deals, all of a sudden you have now a new endpoint for deals, and so you want to use this tool because that's how you're going to find the input. If you make another custom object for pets or whatever it is, which I actually did do. So I'm just going to close this and show you. If I just find pets, yeah. So look at this. I've got an endpoint for pets because in my Ontraport account I've created a object called pets. I was pretending to be a veterinarian that day. And then you click on this and you get all the stuff. I can add a pet or delete a pet or update a pet or whatever it might be. Same thing happened for deals. So I'm going to find deals, and there's a few different versions of it. Notice that there's this thing called related contacts, related deals. We'll talk about that later. That's not the one you're looking for. You're looking for this plain old deals one. And so you open this stuff up, and what am I trying to do again? I'm trying to create a new deal. Right? So when this thing happens, I'm going to make a new deal. So I look down here and I find the one that says this will create a deal. pretty self-explanatory. So I like that. I click on this, and I notice that it says post, and then it says a bunch of fields. And what all these fields are is the fields. So let's just go into deals. You'll see that this is all the fields that are in my deals record. So you can see, and the description, there's a bunch of like numbers, computery stuff, but then over here is the name. I understand this. Primary contact, company, campaign, sequences, deal tags, owner, IP address, all the deal value, deal name, right? This is all the stuff that I'm used to seeing in deals. Here's the drop-down options. Look at this. It says the options are as follows: new prospect, qualified lead, demo scheduled, consideration committed, closed won, closed lost. So that's going to be like the status, right? Or this is within 7 days, within 7 to 14. These are the drop-down values. And so it says here, you know, it's kind of giving me a little map. So if I wanted to set this, 94 will be within 7 days, 93 will be 7 to 14 days. So it's kind of like a little map. Okay, so let's try this thing out. The other cool thing about this tool is that you can actually like try it out, as it says here. So what we do is we just maybe type some stuff in here. So for example, what would the deal name be? I might want to call it deal ID. You're not going to worry about that stuff. Actual close date. There it is. Deal name. My new deal. Okay. The deal value. Let's call it $1,000. The expected close date. I'm not going to worry about that. Let's see. I think that actually I might have put that in my thing. Expected win percentage. This is all about, I'm not going to describe how this stuff works. There's another video I did, I'm sure, about what all this stuff is. But let's just say it's a 50% expected close rate. And then let's see. Deal ID, contact, deal ID, none of that stuff we're going to need to fill out. That's going to get automatically created. And then there's the primary contact, right? Who's this deal going to get related to? That's the relationship. So if I go in here, this is the primary contact. And let's see, is that right? Landon, search for it. I can find Landon or whatever. Now it's the primary contact. So if I want to like make Landon the primary contact of my new deal, what I need to do here is I need to actually go find the Landon record. So I'll do that. Right, there's one. So I can click on this, and I can see the ID of this record here is 7259. That's the Landon record, right? 7259. So I'll put that in there. That's going to be the primary contact, 7259. And I can do the same thing for a company if I want to. I can go to the companies and say I want to make this deal. Let's see, let's look at my companies. Kimmy's Nutrition. I can click on that, and it's ID number 6. So I can put that in there, 6. And I think that's probably good for now. And then I'm going to just click try it out, and we'll just watch what happens. It thinks for a minute, and okay, now it sent me some stuff back. And what it said was, let's see, response code 200. That's good. 200 means it worked. And it also has the request URL. It tells me exactly where I sent this thing. I could have seen that up at the top here because it said /. Well, can you see it up at the top there? Maybe not. Maybe you got to go into the other docs. But anyway, I found it right here. This is the request URL, so that's the endpoint we need. And so that is the answer to the question, what do I put in this field? Okay, API, ontraport.com/1/deals, and that is right there. Okay, let's just go back and see if the dang thing worked. It says it worked. And look at this, my new deal. And Landon is the primary contact. Kimmy's Nutrition is the company. Deal value is $1,000. Expected to win 50%. So it looks like we did a pretty good job here. It did exactly what we hoped it would do. Now, what are we gonna do? We're gonna look down here, and again, I'm not an engineer, so I'm not like writing this stuff from scratch. This is my shortcut way of handling this situation is what I looked into this response body. This is what the API sent back. And what I did was I grabbed this, like this, and I just copied all the way down. all the way down to right there. So between the curly brackets, there's the first curly bracket there after the data situation, and after the colon, I grabbed the first curly bracket and then down to the closing curly bracket, and I copied that. Okay, and then what I did is I clicked on this body, and that's basically the body I'm going to send in here. I'm just going to add some spaces and show you what happens if I paste that in. Now there's a bunch of information here that I didn't add, right? There's all these fields that I wasn't filling out, or fields that are set by the system, stuff that I didn't care about. And so I'm going to limit it to stuff that I did care about. So 7259, that's familiar. That was the contact ID I used. 6 was the company ID I used. This was the name. And remember, this is going to be familiar. If I go back up here, my new deal, look at what it says. F1884 was the name. If I go back over here and it says F1884, and there's the name, right? So I've got a clue about how this works. ID 46, that was not something we sent. That system assigned that, so we don't want to mess with that. Owner, it defaulted to the API owner, so that would be me. The date, all this stuff got, that's the date in Unix time. It all got set automatically. So all this stuff I do not need. And so what I'm going to do is delete it all. I'm just going to delete all that, backspace. And because I made this mistake, you don't have to. Turns out that this little comma here, after the last item in your list, wreaks all sorts of havoc. So you need to get rid of that one. But you got to make sure commas are between the other ones. So it's like item, comma, item, comma. And you can. This format is going to be the same. It's like quotes with the field ID, and then colon and space, and then quotes with the data that you want to send over, and then comma, and then just like that. That's how it works. And then you've got to make sure not to have the comma at the end. Again, I learned that the hard way. Okay, and then what do? Remember, we don't want to just create every deal. Like if somebody fills out a form, we don't want to create a deal that is always hooked up to that is always called my new deal, or is always with a particular company, or always whatever. So what we use here is merge fields to sort of customize what the deal is going to look like, right? So what I did was say I have well, let's say I want to have this is the contact ID of the person filling out the form, right? So instead of this, I'm going to delete this right here. That was the contact ID. And then I'm going to use this merge field tool, and I'm going to type in contact ID. I'm going to merge that in. And so now you can see what I just did there. So F1895 is the contact that this is going to get related to. And then I put contact ID. When this webhook goes out, it's going to grab the contact ID of the contact who just filled out this form or whatever, whoever's on this campaign, and it's going to merge that in there. And so then I can say the company name, if say the contact ID, this contact has a company, I would just put company name in there like that. Or actually, I could probably be smarter to put company ID. Let me show you how to do that. I will put. You can dive into the company fields by clicking on this arrow here, and now I've got the company fields, and I search for ID, and so there it is, company name / ID, and so now I've got the company ID, so that's that 6 is gonna be there, and then the name. Do they all want to be called My New Deal? Maybe it's gonna be like maybe it's gonna be first name. I can just use the merge field too. I can type them in or do it like this: first name, last name, and then like what I think they're going to buy, because they just said I'm interested in cheese. And so now the deal is going to be called Landon Ray cheese, and then the what I think the deal might be worth. This was the likelihood to close, and then that's how I'm going to leave it. Now let's just see. I basically did the same thing up here. Okay, this is interesting. So I'm going to delete this. You could just leave it like that, and that would work, right? So I did a couple things in my example that are a little different. I'm just going to delete this for now and show you what I did with my example. So this is I merged in the date. I was just messing around and I actually merged it in as a Unix date. I can take this out. So end date merges in today. So whenever this fires off, it'll fire off and it'll say, you know, today, and I can't remember, yeah, something like that. And then this is the value, and you can, just in case you don't know, the end date is pretty useful. And there's a bunch of formatting information about how to format that sucker. And it's in the support center. I won't get into that now, but go look for it in the support center. Just type in end date, and you'll see all the formatting options in the support center. Because you can add a bunch of stuff. Like I put Unix in there, but you can put it in, you know, Tuesday. You can put it in different formats. You can add time to it. In fact, that's what I did here. So, in fact, I'm going to change this because I did. Let's see. Well, F1884, I don't even remember what this is, F1884. So I'm going to go back and look at 1884. What is that? 1884. Oh, that's the name. And 1886 was, I don't know. It was, there it is. It's the expected close date. Okay, cool. So that's interesting. So today's date, I don't know why I'd say that. So this is the expected close date. Expected. Something like that. I don't know. What did I do here? Let's see if that even works. So this is you know, basically how this thing goes. And so what I can do is publish these changes. I created a little, you know, I'm actually going to change this to name here just to do my example. First name, last name. Okay, save. Let's see what happens. I don't even know what that today's date thing is. I don't remember. I did this a week or so ago. So I'm going to publish that again, save and publish. And now just so you can see what I did, just so I can test this thing out, I just created a tag called create a deal. And so that's how that's going to get triggered. So I go back to contacts and I pick one like this. I'm going to go in here because it's faster if I do it from inside the record. And then I go down to tags, which is here. I add a tag called create a deal. Boom. So that goes. It should be relatively quick. You know, things take a minute, but let's just go see what happened here. I go back to deals. And look at this, Landon Ray product. So this just got created. And expected close date didn't work because I put a bunch of weird stuff in there. I don't know why I did that. So let's actually fix that. But everything else here worked really good, right? So I'm going to go back to this campaign and put, so here's actually what I did. This is interesting, I think. So end date. So here's this, end date Unix plus 51. I need to explain this. So end date is today, and then Unix is tells it to send this data in a Unix timestamp, okay? And that's because our system accepts dates in Unix timestamps. That's how it translates dates. So you always want to send dates in Unix timestamps. And now how did and then it's got this thing called plus blah, blah, blah. Okay, so watch this. We're going to use the Google. Today in Unix time. And here it is. Here's today in Unix time. Okay, so if I wanted to send today or this particular date, you know, or you could also, you know, change this and it'll give you the Unix time, right? The other thing it'll do is, so if I want to put in like, you know, 2020, I think this is month. What is this? Month 05, day probably. What is today? The 13th. 13th. Convert. Yeah, 5/13/2020, and here is the timestamp. Now, I did something weird here. How many hours is, and then this is that number I had in there, seconds. You can add time. Okay, how many how many days is that many seconds? Oh, 60 days. Okay, look at this. So you can add time. So what Unix time is, and this is again just weird engineering stuff. Unix time is the number of seconds since 1970. I don't know why that's how we decided to do it, but that's what Unix time is. It's literally the number of seconds that has passed since 1970, and that's how it determines the current time in the Unix time. And so if you want to add or remove time to a Unix time, you add or remove seconds. It's real weird, but that's how you do it. And I just Googled the thing, and look at this. I've got that many seconds is 60 days. I probably did it in the opposite to come up with that number of seconds, right? How many seconds in 60 days? And Google told me. And so you can, in your merge fields, drop a little like plus X number of seconds after the Unix thing, and it'll merge that sucker in there. So watch what happens now. And so what I'm trying to say is the expected close date is 60 days from whenever this thing whenever this thing got completed. So let's do this. I'm going to save and publish this again, and hopefully the magic will work. I'm going to go back to my contact, and I'm going to just quickly delete this tag. Remember, it triggers when the tag is added, so I'm just going to delete it and then add it again, because the system is always watching. So, so there we go. And I'm going to go back to deals, and hopefully, in a second here, wait, it didn't happen yet. Did I might have, oh, there it is, awesome. So it took a second to happen, but look at that, 2 months from today. Shit, it worked. Isn't engineering fun? Okay, so we've now got a deal that is ready to go, right? And it's going to show up right on my little on my active deals board. I could set a status, right? I could have put it in new prospect. I could have put it in qualified lead, whatever I wanted to do. If I wanted to do that, what would I have done? I would have put it here as new prospect. So F1293. Let's just try it for fun, because then we're gonna move on and move quickly through the rest of these, because we're starting to get long already. So what would I do if I wanted to add a status to this thing? I would go like that. Remember, I added a comma there. I added that thing, the number of the field, and then let's see, new prospect is 83. Okay, so I'm going to just type, everything goes in quotes for some reason, and then no comma at the end, since it's the last one here, and I'm going to save it, and I'm going to publish it. Okay, I'm going to not go through the whole thing. You can trust me that it's going to work, because it's going to work. That's how it works. So we're going to move on to the next item here, because that's what we're going to do. All right, we're going to copy one field to another. All right, what do? We start here. We get deals closed up. We're doing this all in the contacts record. We're gonna look at the various options, the various endpoints that the contacts has, and contacts has a special one called save or update. And what's cool about that is that if it's, because you've got, this will create a contact, and you've got, this will update a contact somewhere right here. So post will create a contact, put will update a contact, but we've got one that does both. It does create it if it is not existing, but merge it if it is existing, which is actually the one you'll probably want to use most of the time when using contacts, just in case you've already got this thing created. And if you don't, it'll create a contact. Either way, it's up to you. So, so I used this one, and what did I do? I just took, let's see, I took a, what is it exactly we decided to do here? Oh, good. So I actually started to give you instructions here. So put field alias here and put merge field to copy here, and then the ID of the contact. So you got to remember when you're merging records, you got to have a unique field, some way that the system knows which contact to merge this with, and we do that with the ID typically with contacts. So, if you're ever like updating a contact, you're going to want to make sure to have that line in there. That's just going to say, this is the contact ID that we're updating. Don't forget. And then this is the contact ID that is coming down through the campaign. So just like that. But here we want to put the field alias here and then put the merge field. So what do I mean? I mean, let's say the field alias that we want to paste to is website. These, some of these, there's a lot of these guys, right? So some of them have these F numbers. Those are going to be your custom fields, but some of them are system fields that actually have names. So like last name is last name. You can always, this is what it looks like in your account. So you can always kind of find the one you're talking about. So say we wanted to, I don't know, maybe put the website in the company name. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this website, that's the field alias on this side, okay? This is the description, or it says parameter here, but description over here. So we're going to take this one on the left, where the same column is all the weird stuff, the F's, right? And we're going to take that, and we're going to pop that in here. It's going to say website. And then here, we're going to delete all this, and we're going to put in whatever field we wanted to copy over there, company name. So what's this going to do? It's going to take the website field and it's going to fill it full of the company name. Does that make sense? For who? For this particular contact, whatever contact is running through the campaign at the time. So save, done, publish, save and publish, close, go back to the situation, contacts. Let's make sure that I have a website on this contact record. Where's my website? I think it's such a, red is my website, perfect. So let's see if we can't make that the company name by doing the same thing. I had a field, copy field to another was the tag I made for that. So let's go back and go back here, give it a second to refresh, and company name, not happening yet. Oh, this might be a bad example because company is a custom object. It probably needs an ID in there, not just a name. Let's just see if I screwed that up. Yeah, it needs an ID. The company is, in my case, is it's a custom. It's like company. So plopping an ID, just a straight word in there is not. It's looking for the ID of one of these company records. So let's do this differently. Let's just change this for the sake of being quick. We're just going to go back here and change this to not company. We're not going to put website. We're not. I'm sorry. We're not going to put. Oh wait, did I do it? What did I do? I'm adding company name to the website. Oh, crap. I take it back. I did it. Oh, okay, I had it opposite. It did work because company name was blank and now website. It used to say red, now it's blank. Okay, that makes sense. If I did this again, Ali's World, I'm copying from one field to another in the wrong direction. So field, copy one field to another, and then we just give it a second. And that will update that company name to the website name. There, sorry, yeah, that's right. All right, last activity is here, and then hopefully this says, yeah, Ali's World, just like we hoped it would. Okay, good. We're moving on. This is all so fun and easy. We already did this. I already explained exactly how this is going to work. Remember, I have, oh, sorry, what am I doing? I'm doing add 30 days to a date. What did I do? I did exactly what I did last time. Put the contact ID in here so it knows which record to update. And then I just said demo date in Unix time. And just so you know, this will help you do this. Demo date, if I want to merge this in, demo date, and it actually gives you all these options. I just select Unix time here, and then it'll even let you offset it by certain seconds. So if I wanted to offset it by 60 days, I go copy, come on, and I pop that in there, and I insert it, and it just jammed that right in there for me. And there it is, demo date, Unix plus blah, 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 right? So that's how you do it. It's really quite simple. So in this case, I did 30 days into, so this is the same field. Interestingly, you can do it to the same field. So this actually, F1752 is demo date. So I'm just taking the same field and then updating that same field and adding 30 days to it in this particular case. So that worked. I tried it out. So I'm not going to show you, but it worked. Add a note. Let's see what happens here. Okay, let's see how I figured this out. I close contacts. And I go to close contacts, and that's a different endpoint for notes. I found notes on the list, and it says this will create a note. I clicked on it. I went in here. I don't worry about the time. The data, this is the note itself, because the data is going to automatically be created. The note, though, this is my awesome new note. The author, I think, is the user ID. So that's going to be whoever you want it to be. One is the administrator. The contact ID is the contact ID. We'll merge that in later, but for now we'll use 7259, which is the one we had before, 7259. And then the object ID that relates. So what type of object are we inserting this into? Because this isn't assuming that it's necessarily contacts. So this is important to understand because remember, pets, all these different object types have notes. So it's asking, well, what kind of what contact ID of what, right? And then we need to tell it it is object ID is 0 of context. So you can look into it and find out. So object ID, it says it right here. If I go to any of these, it should say the same. Oops, nope. Contacts, if I go to any of these suckers, create a new contact, it's going to say object ID 0. So that's what I'm going to put in here if I want to make a contact note, which I do. So I'm going to zip back down to notes. I'm going to put 0 in the object ID type, and I'm going to try it out. And let's see what happens. And it said, in a second, it will say, boom, 200, it worked. Remember, I'm going to do my little copy thing again. I'm going to up to right here after the data situation, copy that. Let's just go and make sure that we've got that note, that it actually worked. This is my awesome new note. There it is with the time and the author, just like I had hoped. So I'm going to grab this information. I'm going to go back here, and what do I have? This is my awesome new note. Author is 1, contact ID. So this is exactly what I did. You can see that. Remember, I don't want to do it to 7259 or it's going to always put it in that one record. You got to change this to, so you just delete that and search for ID, put contact ID in there. And then object type is 0. This ID 56, you want to get that out of there. That's the ID of the note. And that's going to be automatically generated. So you got to delete that and delete the comma. And also the time, that's also generated by the system. So don't add that, delete that comma, and boom, that's what you have. So and that's exactly what I put in there. So I'm just going to delete all that because we only want to do it once. And there it is. That's how you create a note. Totally worked. Okay, we're at an hour already. I think I'm going to maybe, okay, just so you know, Slack notification, I had to get, it's a little bit different. Different tools work in different ways. In this particular case, the endpoint, this is the, goes to Slack, and they gave me this, the kind of like keys are in the URL. I'm not going to show them to you because I don't want you guys posting my notes to our Slack account. But all I did was I just looked up Slack API, and I just started figuring it out, right? So, so I just, clicked on this sucker, and in this case, you have to like create a little Slack. You have to create an app, start building, and it kind of tells you how to do this. So create a Slack app, and you give it a name, and maybe I'll do an example of how we did this later, but you kind of have to give it a name. So you're gonna have to search a little bit on how to get that done. But I just put the code in there so that you can kind of see how that works. It wasn't hard. It took me a few minutes. Trello was a little bit more of a mess because they make it hard to get your keys, but once you figure it out, it worked. Now, delete a contact, just maybe don't do this. Deleting contacts is something you can do manually. The reason I want to show you this is that it worked a little different when I went to go delete a contact. And I don't know why, don't really care, but it did. And so I want to show you that because there may be other examples where it worked like this. So check this out. Find contacts. Where's my contacts? There it is. Contacts. And then there's deleted contact. I pop this sucker open. All right, what was it? 7259. That's the contact I keep using here. 7259, yes. So it's the only thing that's required. I'm just going to delete it, and what happens? Response body, boom, 200. That means it worked. You'll get other things if it didn't work. I don't know, 200 worked. So here's the thing. This, I tried to I looked at this response body and it didn't have the ID of the contact I'm trying to delete. I certainly didn't want to delete my account or anything like that, so that didn't make any sense to me. Then I noticed that the ID came out in this request URL. You can see how it just says API.1/contact ID equals 7259. That's the ID that we just deleted. And so turns out that this particular endpoint needs to have the ID in the URL itself. And so that's what I have done here. I just merged that in. You can see that you can merge it in the same way. You got the little merge field tool. But I just popped that thing, contact, and then remember I select a webhook method, which is delete this time, not put or post or whatever. And then the keys are here, but in the data to send, there's nothing. You just leave it blank, and that works. Okay, gonna leave that one for now. Zoom meeting. Let's see. By the way, you guys are on your own with this stuff. We're not supporting you on how to create Zoom meetings via, our team does not know how to do this. We haven't trained on it internally. You're gonna have to find your cousin Willie who knows how to do this stuff if you don't figure it out on your own. I figured it out all on my own. The key thing here was this type 2. It took me a little minute to figure out type 2 is important. Yeah. And notice that they take dates a little bit differently, but they show it all to you. You just search Zoom API. It just took a few minutes. Again, there's no nothing. Oh yeah, there's a this bearer situation in the header. You had to get your bearer key. It took me a minute to figure that out. And you have to, I don't know, plop it in here somewhere. It takes a minute to figure it out, but yeah, I was able to automatically create a Zoom meeting. Which is pretty cool. And then, of course, using Zapier or whatever, you can send out the invites to the meeting and kind of automate that whole process. Last one I'm going to talk about is one that our custom object geeks are going to really like, and that is to create a connection for many-to-many relationships. So in the app, you can always make your record a child of another one just by selecting. For example, you can always make a contact related to a deal by just going to the contact and selecting the deal name, or a company. Same way, just select the company and it's automatically a child. But doing it the other way, selecting a child or selecting a many-to-many in this case is not easy to do using the campaign builder for various reasons. So I just want to show you that I did figure this out. It's not hard at all. In this case, what did I do? I was relating F2, I don't know what I'm relating here, contacts and deals or something like that. But what I found out is that there are these endpoints that get created with many-to-many relationships where, look, I'm going to search for contacts. And look at this, related contacts / related deals. And this is the endpoint you need to make this thing happen. And so what you're actually doing is you're creating a relationship. It's like this intermediate, object that doesn't show up in your app, but it is how it works. And so, so the related deal, so if, and basically what it's saying here is the related deal and the related context. So I've just deleted 7253, so I'm going to have to go find a new contact to relate. I'm going to relate this one, 7775, Sean. And then I'm going to go to a deal here. 7775 is my contact. Watch what happens. 7775. And then I go to my deal. Oops. I'm going to go to the deal, and I'm going to find one. Uh-oh. All deals. And Landon. So this is deal 48. All right, let's get rid of this stuff. Deal 48. And so these are the two records that I'm creating. I try it out. I see what happens. I discover that it worked. I got a 200 there. So now let's just refresh my related contacts. I can do that by sorting them, and boom, there's that record. And of course, if I go to, oops, I can go back here. If I jump over to that related record, Sean, by clicking that little guy right there, you'll see that he's got that deal there. So we just created that relationship. So how do we do it with a webhook? Well, I just do the same thing as always. Grab that stuff like that. Go into the body of the situation and look for the stuff I should be deleting. IP address, not necessary. Date last modified, that's a system field. DLA, don't even know what that is. Date, that's probably date added, date the relationship was created. The ID of the relationship, probably don't need that either. Look at this, all I need is these two fields, which are, what were they? The related deal and the related contact, so 48 and 7775. This is going to be contact ID. So if I come in here, you can see I merge that in. I just delete that and I put in contact ID. And then you're going to need to figure out what deal you want to add these people to. And you're just going to have to hard code that in because they're not, it could be another field in the contact record, but you're going to have that data. So in this case, I'm relating it to deal number 1. In the example, it was deal number 48. Save. And away we go. And that was a post. You'll see that is the post type method. Okay, that was a tough hour. There's a lot of possibility here. As you can see, I will share these examples with you so you guys can bang your head against this and let's keep the conversation alive in the community. We'll ask and answer questions there. Again, don't hit up our support team about why your API is not working with Zoom or whatever, because they will not know. But you can hit up the user community, and there's always lots of people that are happy to help, including myself to the best of my ability. That's it? Okay. Thanks very much, guys. We'll see you next week.